Chapter 10. Well, little fishes, it's that time. Jessica sighed. She grabbed up the envelope and headed down the hallway towards Bill's office, where she found the two of them sharing a cup of coffee. Got a minute? Sure, come on in, Bill said, brushing aside the pile of photographs that he was studying. Jessica sat down next to Emma on the couch and cleared her throat. I really appreciate your offer to sell the Sentinel to me, especially with such generous terms. She started uneasily. Why do I get the feeling there is a but coming here? Emma said with concern. But, Jessica nodded and continued, I am going to have to say no thank you. She handed the envelope of papers over to Emma and shrank back into the deep crevasses of the overstuffed cushions. Why? Bill said, clearly shocked and disappointed. Jessica thought for a moment and sighed. I really appreciate all that the two of you have done for me. I hope you know that. You took me in when I had nothing, and you helped me raise Philip. I could never have kept him at home if it wasn't for you, but I have been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I have some personal things going on in my life right now that have caused me to realize that I am not the same person that I was before Philip left home. She said, I want more than I have right now. I want to enjoy life on my terms for the first time. If I buy the paper from you, even with the very generous terms you offered, I will have to dedicate the next 10 or 15 years to getting it off the ground, she said. Here comes the hard part. Well, she thought, they deserve the truth. I want to take the time to have a family. I want to be married and have children. She looked away with tears flowing down her face, unable to face the two friends who were unable to have children of their own. Emma grabbed Jessica's hand and squeezed gently. We understand, she whispered. Bill and Emma exchanged a knowing look, and he took the papers from his wife and placed them on the desk. Well, okay, then that is settled, he said. We will go with Plan B. If you don't mind my asking, Jessica questioned, what is Plan B? Bill has a local buyer in mind in case you decide that you don't want, well, you know, just in case. I expect, Bill stated firmly, that it will take no more than a phone call, and we will be able to get the paperwork started. I can't give any details, that wouldn't be fair to the buyer, but I am sure you will be able to continue on just like you are used to. The new owner is going to need somebody here who knows how things work. Jessica nodded and got up to leave. I do really appreciate both of you. We know, Emma said, and we appreciate you too. Jessica left work in the afternoon feeling as though a great burden had been lifted from her heart. As she drove towards Riverview House, she felt a bit of apprehension over seeing David after the harsh words that exchanged the previous evening. She walked up to the front door and saw that it had been reframed, painted and placed back where it belonged. Looks odd to see a house with a door on it, doesn't it? She heard from behind. It looks good, she said, turning with a smile. I told them, she said. David nodded and put the boards that he was carrying on the ground. Want to go for a walk and talk about it? I'd love that. She hopped down the steps and took the arm that he offered. Except for the yard, I really don't know much about this place. You used to play here, is there anything fun to look at? Oh yeah, she said with a smile. I bet you didn't know you owned a cemetery. They headed off down what at one time was a sidewalk, heading over the crest of the west side of the hill. The first hints of fall colors were starting to show in the trees, as the sunlight danced off their tops, filling the earth below with the radiant golden glow of a fall afternoon. Bands of light tickled across the forest floor, and as they shuffled along they laughed at the startled look on the face of a surprised squirrel. So tell me how it went with your bosses, he asked. Well, I guess it was as good as it could be expected. I told them how grateful I was and all that, but I had to tell them no. Most people seem to think you really enjoy your work. David inquired. I know there are parts of it you don't care for. It's not all about the work, she said, considering. I think it's more that I didn't have a chance to be myself when I was younger. After the accident, I had to grow up in a hurry. I couldn't afford to make any mistakes, so I had to play it safe all the time. I felt that I was responsible for everything and everybody, she continued. I used to get really upset if everything didn't work out just right, and I would blame myself even if I had nothing to do with it. Do you think that is why you never got into a really serious relationship? He asked. I don't know, I think that's part of it. I have been dating Kevin for quite a while, but we were never really serious. He wasn't ready to settle down and I wasn't free to. I had to concentrate on work and being a single parent of a teenager. Try that while working 60 hours a week with nobody to support you at home. No thanks, David said with a sympathetic smile. You have to know you did a great job with Philip though, everybody says so. I am very proud of him, she said, but he had it too, and he's a tough kid. Yeah, it's been hard, and I want something more. There are times in the deep darkness of the night where I feel so empty inside, she confessed, like I am the only person on the earth. I am tired of feeling empty and alone. I want a family, I want a husband and children and a house on the hill. Well, you know what I mean. I know exactly what you mean, he said, considering what a wonderful wife this stunning young woman would make for a man. The very thought of another man slipping a wedding ring onto her strong, thin finger made his heart ache. The abandoned sidewalk turned into a narrow roadway, which led to a small metal-fenced area, which surrounded several large marble monuments. Susan used to bring me here to scare me, she told David. These stones cast some pretty weird shadows through the trees, and it's pretty spooky when you are 9 years old. Yeah, well, it's pretty spooky when you are our age, too, David said. He pushed the rusting iron gate aside and walked in. Well, here's the original owner of the house, David said, pointing. Here's his wife, and I would guess these are his children. This place is pretty run down. I will clean it up when I get a chance. Well, if you are going to do that, you should clean up the other one too, Jessica said. Other one? Don't tell me there are 2 graveyards on my land, David said with a sigh. There were a lot of people who lived on this land, there is a lot of history. Some of that history is bad. Let me show you, she said, leading him away from the ornate stones towards another flat spot on the side of the hill. No fence surrounded several small, heavily eroded stones. After a couple of minutes of contemplation, David turned to Jessica with a look of recognition. Of course, he said, Missouri was a slave state. When I die, I want to be buried here, Jessica said, pointing to the ground next to a small, worn gravestone. Hopefully, she added with a quick smile, that will be a long time from now. I had no idea I would be getting into things like this when I bought this place, he said, looking around at the history spread out before him. You hear about things like slavery, and you can't imagine it. How could people be that horrible to each other? You know that it's true, but here, looking at this, I had no idea that anything like this was here. I just thought I was going to renovate an old house. This is it, David thought suddenly. This is as good a time as it's going to get. Okay, here goes. Jessica, about yesterday. I am sorry about that. Jessica grimaced. I didn't mean to jump you like that. I know you said you would tell me when it was time. I believe you. I was already on pins and needles. I shouldn't have put you on the spot like that. It's not that, he said, trying to continue. It's just that, what I have to say is, well, don't worry about it right now, she interrupted. Just walk with me. She offered her arm, and together they walked back up the hill towards the house. The sky reflected a deep blue, darkening towards black behind the looming structure, as they grew closer to the summit. Everything is so upside down right now, she breathed. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I think that it's time that I move on with my life. What do you mean by that, exactly? She squeezed gently on his arm. I don't know what your plans are when you finish this job, but I would like to get to know you better. I would like to see if, perhaps, David stopped her motion and pulled her up into his arms. I would like that very much. He pressed his body close to hers and kissed her long, soft and deep. I think about you a lot, he said. I think I would like to spend more time with you. If I seem distant, he said, it's because I have been hurt before. You are right. There comes a time when you have to put your past aside and take a chance. I think I know exactly what you mean. One more time, David decided. I am going to try to tell her this one more time before we get back to the house. Jess, look, I need to tell you something about the house. Well, he spoke, only to be interrupted by the sound of the cell phone in her purse. Instinctively, Jessica grabbed it and checked the caller ID. "One sec, I wonder what he wants," she grumbled, answering the call with a flick of her thumb. "What?" She spat into the phone. Her look of anger turned quickly into one of shock and disbelief. Without saying another word, she took the phone down from her ear, clicked it off, stared at it for 2 seconds and then pitched it as hard as she could into the woods by the house. Kevin hung up the phone, smiling with satisfaction. There, he thought, that should just about do it. He had rehearsed that conversation almost an hour before he had called, to make sure he said it exactly right. "Hello, Jessica, this is Kevin." "Well, my friends call me that. You can call me Mr. DeWitt, since I am your new boss. Just signed the papers a while ago. I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning, so we can discuss your new work assignments. Don't be late. I wouldn't want to have to fire you on the first day." "Nobody makes a fool of me," he gloated. "Let's see who's laughing now."